Okay. Hi. Okay. I've got it.
You good?
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Don. Okay, we are now live. You may begin with your presentation whenever you're ready.
Oh, hi. Apologies, I was stuck in an Uber trying to get across London spot, so I'm just gonna, should I just get on with it really quickly and just carry on? Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, so hopefully I'm going to try to share screen, yeah? Is that right, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, let's go with that then. Hi. Okay, wait a sec. Like that. Here we are. Right. So I'm going to share. Yep. Okay. Can you see that screen now?
Yes, we're seeing it.
Okay. Right. So great. And you can hear perfectly well.
Yes.
Excellent. Right. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to be talking to you really about some of the big changes that are happening at the moment. As we know in search, search is always changing, but it kind of feels like this at the minute with mobile first and the change in user behavior, etc. It's a kind of a whole new world of search that we're up against at the moment. So just a little bit about myself. Some of you will know me. I'm a digital marketing and SEO consultant, and I do some lecturing as well, and I do a bit of speaking and writing and so forth. But because we're late, I'm not going to dwell on that. Let's carry on. Okay, so as we know, the modern shopper is kind of time poor. Everybody's really busy, and we are all a little bit obsessed with researching absolutely everything. There has been a huge increase in the number of searches for anything that begins is in a query, if you like, a query cluster with best. So best hairbrushes, best toothbrushes even. I mean, oh my goodness, we're absolutely ridiculously obsessed if we're at the stage where we're starting to, do research on which is the best toothbrush out there. But that's just the state of the situation as it is, if you like. But at the same time, because we have so much going on around us, and obviously we are multi-devicing, we're on mobiles, desktops, iPads, tablets, and also now gaming devices, and obviously our TV. So we're kind of in the age of huge information overload. We're in the age of almost attention economy, in that actually it's really difficult to get the attention of the consumer. And we have been likened, if you like, to having the memory of less than a goldfish, the average attention span of a goldfish. But that's not necessarily true, because obviously it does depend on what information you're sharing. There's been some recent studies, for instance, and I'll go into this in a much greater detail a bit further on. But for instance, video is massively engaging. So it's really not a case of, we won't pay attention to anything. It's just what the medium is, if you like. So what's new? We know that search is always changing, as I've just mentioned. Let's have a quick look and have a think really about how we can adapt to, if you like, the small screen first mobile user and the modern SEO, the modern e-commerce shopper. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to look at 10 recommendations for modern e-commerce SEO. One thing I will say is this list is not comprehensive. You could go on and on and on and on. You could probably do a listicle with like 100 top recommendations for modern e-commerce SEO. But obviously we have limited time. There are other speakers. So the list is definitely not comprehensive. It's just a few of the ones which I think are like really important now. So tip one is this. For me, it's important that you accept your e-commerce website is just one amongst many data layers, now in a range of several assistive search systems. We know that with the likes of voice search coming through and, chatbots and potentially things like driverless cars that take directions and are assistive, not necessarily always in search, but in this kind of recommender system whereby search engines are proactively pushing information to us rather than us putting it in a query into 10 blue links. So actually, we know that whilst your website we know they're database driven, that it's just one layer. There's many ways in which people can access the data from your site. We know that one of those really, really important forms of data is structured data. And on the other day, HTTP2, not HTTP2, HTTP Archive, the guys over there, they did a little bit of querying and looked at the uptake of structured data, which has taken a really long time to actually start to get implemented. I know a lot of people think, oh, it's quite new, but it's actually not. It's been around a long time. But actually getting developers to, all code in the same way, etc., particularly when there hasn't necessarily been a carrot, if you like. Previously, there wasn't really much additional ranking visibility. Strangely, since you start telling SEOs that actually structured data produces things like featured snippets, there is like a 3 times year-on-year increase in implementation of JSON and microdata. And that's what the guys at HTTP Archive found when they just did a little bit of query. Massive, massive growth. I think it went from something like 25,000 websites had JSON LD implemented. This is out of a 500,000 sample. You need to be aware. It's not every website on the internet, because that could be infinite. But this of a sample of 500,000, so 25,000 last year, up to 88,000. And if I'm not mistaken, the figures were something like, I don't know, there was again a triple increase in microdata implementation, and it was bigger than JSON LD. So definitely go and look out that. But actually, so the big thing is, big recommendation, schema, all the things, yeah. But so many schemas out there, and actually you can really start to, don't necessarily have to just go with the ones that everybody knows about. But the key is to make sure that you test it properly. Test your structured data with the Google Search Console structured data testing tool. Be careful though, make sure that actually once you've tested it, you go back and look at the page to make sure that actually what's being pulled and tested is actually correct, because just because something's spelt right, it doesn't necessarily mean it's actually implemented right. So actually it's important to go and check it yourself properly. Always, kind of get better at looking at code, I would say. And also, look at things like data highlighting to just get you started in the first place, to see whether it's worth the uptake. Particularly events is really good for that. Then the problem is, obviously, you need to keep updating that page. Better over time, you can get developers to implement it directly. So, okay, product schema. This is a really, really obvious one if you're in e-commerce and it's a shopping. So you really should make sure that whatever platform you're using, you either find something that's like a module or a plugin, or you implement it with your developers. And there's so many different options in there. There's even disambiguation description, which is really important. I'm going to come to that again a bit further on, because we know that historically there have been issues with things like duplicate content and so forth. So really dig in and have a look at thing product, if you like, which comes from obviously the e-commerce schema. Spend a bit of time root around and have a look in there. It's just the obvious one. Be careful though that you follow the rules with things like leaves and listings, because sometimes you can end up getting some structured data penalties. Sometimes they're not intentional. I imagine that a lot of the time they're really not people trying to be spammy, but we're just all quite new to implementing feature snippets. So another amazing data layer that's coming through, and I would really be focusing hugely on this, hugely, because for me now, this is it's an age of interactive search. Obviously, we've had interactive information retrieval that came after classic information retrieval. Now we're in the age of mobile information retrieval, where people are on the go and people want speed, they want interactivity, but also there is this notion, obviously, of adaptive content that is adaptive. So obviously, Google My Business kind of provides us with that. Things that are actually, useful content based upon people's needs at the time. And one of the ones that they've got, which is particularly key for e-commerce, is the product post. So that's reasonably new, I think. So you can actually use that. You can add offers. You can add rich media, semantic rich media around questions and answers, and really be an assistive organization that makes the most use of Google My Business. I would be doing that as one of your data layers. Tip 2, think Gestalt principles increasingly. Now, Gestalt is, if you like, a UX web design principle. Increasingly, SEO and UX kind of fit together. We know that search engines are trying to understand humans and provide results actually and an experience that actually is positive for humans. Gestalt principles are pretty big in that area. The way it works is this: Gestalt principles take into consideration the way that our minds understand patterns, filling gaps. This is particularly important because people don't have time to be reading everything, looking at all the detail when they've got one eyeball and one hand on a mobile phone. So there's quite a lot of principles. There's proximity, similarity, closure, good continuation, common fit, and good form. It's a really, really interesting area of, of study, if you like. But actually what we'll look at are some of the 3 main ones because we don't have a huge amount of time. Proximity, similarity, and closure. These are all really important to e-commerce SEO. So proximity. Nearness in space, time, or relationship. I just really took the Wikipedia definition. So basically, what this means is that when people see things that are near to each other, proximity, on a page, in a menu, or clustered somewhere, they automatically assume that they are related. So they start to build these chunks, small chunks, if you like, in their mind, which helps them to sort of hold the information a lot better. So actually, when you have, for instance, like a hygiene menu, which is like about us, contact us, find us, or whatever, they're usually top right, if you like, very high top right on most e-commerce sites, cart, that kind of thing. You kind of know that's just the hygiene things. They're just if I need a little bit of help and so forth. So actually, in e-commerce, because we're looking, obviously to get speed and checkouts and so forth, it's important to try and apply some of these principles to people, because people kind of know what an e-commerce site should look like. So using things like these clusters to group things together that are related by making them near. For instance, you might have a left-hand menu and a right-hand menu across a desktop, and obviously then it might collapse into hamburger or something that's not necessarily a hamburger, but one of the really good menus that are being built now for UX. So bear that in mind. I don't think it's a coincidence. Google have said identify your top tasks and put them atop the menu. So actually, this is a great place for that, but make sure they're all related and clustered. Similarity is another one. Yeah, as we know, people struggle with things that are very, very similar. Yeah, but they realize that they are related. Yeah, so it's the same thing. They're kind of very, very similar. Pardon the pun, between similarity and proximity. But the difference is this. So if you have like a few items that are the same color and the same font or the same like size on a web page as each other or in a block, then they share common features and similar features. Again, same thing, that will give your user the impression and belief that there should be like similarity there. So it's important to sort of implement that. Be careful though not to just implement similarity principle based on just a colour alone. You really should have it so there's a few like similarities, because otherwise it can just be a little bit confusing. This is another one. This is amazing. This is a crossover between information architecture, UX, and I always believe SEO, because I think there's a huge marriage between SEO, information architecture, and information retrieval, and kind of that just comes back to how search engines work. So Gestalt principle, closure. Yeah, this is called reification. What do you see? Do you see a triangle? Do you see 3 Pac-Man? Yeah, in a little circle, like having a chat. Do you see just 3 circles with a little corner cheddar cheese taken out of each? Yeah. Do you see 3 cheddar cheeses? And the top one. Do you see the second one, a spiky cannonball type thing? Yeah, like medieval hammer ball. Or do you see just a few cones all just randomly in the air? Humans fill in gaps in their minds because they know what to expect. They see things that are common to them. So, for instance, you can really kind of work on things like menus here. So, for instance, people are used to seeing, you don't necessarily have to have every single item in a menu, and because they'll know, oh, that's the bathroom menu, so I better go and look in the bathroom section. It means that you're able to be a little bit canny with your internal linking, what you actually consider is important, and put that there. And people will kind of fill in the gaps. It's scents and patches. They sniff a scent that actually there's information in that direction. That's the patch that they'll then go and root around in, and dig down. There's some really interesting stuff about that I saw recently at a conference in Grenoble, which was the European Conference for Information Retrieval. Some really great research on that. So anyway, that's a big one as well. So third tip, I'm going to get through this as quickly as I can because I know there's a waiting to speak. You need a trio of sitemaps. So an XML sitemap is not enough, So obviously we know that an XML sitemap is largely built for search engines, They're not massively well formatted. They're quick. You can even have them as just a list of text URL list if you're struggling to get the date last modified, you don't want to put burden on the server, and you have pretty static pages, but a lot of them, or even if you do have them changing, but actually you have crawl issues. I did say I wasn't going to talk about crawl, but actually, if you know that those URLs are pretty much going to be grounded and they don't change a lot, I would maybe even consider just a static URL list, .txt URL list, submit that as an alternative to an XML file. But that is largely for search engines to realize the importance. And as I say, it's about informing them and educating them on the importance when there are several choices. Human visitors, front-facing sitemap. I prefer to call these almost like help centers. I see some really great examples actually of websites doing an amazing job with front-facing sitemaps. Actually, they don't just say, oh, this is a sitemap, here's a list of everything. What they do is they do the same thing. They use the reification. They put the important things in there, and they rely on human intuition to understand that actually, this is where I go for that. Oh, I wonder if I open that door, I'm going to find all the bathroom stuff, if that says bathroom section, bathroom department. Above a supermarket aisleway, you'll see bathrooms, you'll see kitchens, or you'll see cereals, or you'll see, you won't see on that label absolutely every item in that shopping aisle. So it's kind of taking that approach, having a support section on there, having the key articles that are actually really important, having it as almost like a department store. And also there's another great way of using, there's so many ways in which you can do these almost like information, navigational jump pages almost. So there's that. And then you need the third one, which is visual sitemap for the SEOs, the devs, the content team to be able to do content audits. Because you know what happens when we actually start to add loads and loads of content into websites, what happens over time is we kind of forget what we've already got. We kind of forget what it looks like. I really like some of the visualizations. I think Power Map has got a great one for looking at a website from above. And also I really like as well Sidebulb, which is a really great tool actually that, again, this is just an example, by the way, of a visualization from Wikipedia that just of Google's properties. It's probably a bit old now, but actually it's kind of shows if you like the tree, and that's all a site is mostly. But anyway, Sidebulb, it's really good. It has brilliant visualizations when you crawl the site to be able to see what's where, and so actually you need to be able to look at it with your team and say, right, well, we've got that content there, that there, instead of having to dig through all the articles or look at lists. Because what have we said? Humans like images. Devs and SEOs and content teams are only the same. We don't want to have to look through every list in a URL list or in a big sitemap. Seeing it from above is a great way of doing things. So trio of sitemaps. You might need more. As your site gets bigger, you might want to separate your XMLs into categories and subcategories and so forth. And I would recommend that. Tip 4. Again, I'm going to give Sidebulb a bit of a plug here. Don't underestimate internal link power. We kind of often forget that actually internal linking is navigation. That's all it is. Navigation is king, but also we know that not just the anchor text that is in links, but the text surrounding the links between pages, adds context for search engines, as to, for me, does things like the title tag on a link as well, the tooltip, and also the same with kind of images as well. I think also the title tag and the alt tag is another kind of, it's almost another way of navigating. But whichever way you do it, don't forget that every single link within the page, whether it's your menu, your breadcrumbs, your footer, every single type of menu, as I said, there's Sitebulb showing us a visualization of all the internal links within a website. But there are several types of internal links, and we kind of forget. We kind of just think, oh, well, it's actually just, contextual link that we've added there to sort of just, and it may be like a little bit SEO-y, but actually they're not the only ones. Every menu on your website is an internal link, and they can be chronologically ordered, date order, alphabetical. A brand page, like if you're in fashion, you might have an A to Z of brands. That's an alphabetical internal link. Menus, step navigation, you could have step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. That's almost like a task-driven navigation. So you're preempting the next task that your audience maybe wants to do, and you may have browse cars. We know that 900 interactions, I think it took for in a study that was done before somebody actually bought a car. So they had all these tasks, and sometimes actually pointing out via signposting, which is links often within a site for the user, is kind of a way of giving this task-driven navigation, but it's helpful as well. And then conceptual, you could have some concepts that you're trying to have as links, and hierarchical categories and subcategories, and obviously, it all helps for SEO. Again, same thing. Breadcrumbs, amazing. I'm a huge fan of them. I think every e-commerce site must have breadcrumbs, because people are trying to find their way about, and so are search engines, and you can have them globally across the whole site or in sections. And I really like the way that some of the music sites do them. This one, for instance, Reading Festival, they use like just that word to actually link back up, to line up, etc. So really cleverly done. They don't have to look like the obvious. But navigation is very important, and breadcrumbs are amazing for that. So tip 5, be interactively assistive. We are in an age of assistive search now, I believe. It's like proactive. We're helping people get these jobs done. And so we also need to be interactively assistively. People want to like enjoy the experience of searching and browsing and kind of foraging around for info. That's why we spend so much time like researching. We're on our phone as a passenger in the car. When you're booking a holiday, you're kind of rooting around. Oh, where am I going to go? You might then get distracted, off you go, and then, oh, where am I going to go? You'll look again. So actually, you need to make it a really engaging experience. And as I say, this is some recent research that shows 80% of video viewing sessions capture people's attention. So it is a myth that actually people are not attentive. It's just that we have a huge fire hose of rubbish being sprayed out on the internet, and we need to capture their attention with the right thing at the right time. And then there is other ways. Even in e-commerce, you can do some really amazing stuff by building community, getting people to come back because they just love the experience that much. We know that people, I think it's images are like processed 60,000 times quicker than text. So use images and make sure that you categorize them well, make sure that you describe them well, make sure that you add captions, make sure you add title tags. It's not just for search engines or, this is for accessibility as well as anything else. But actually, everything helps. And bear in mind that images are obviously dealt with differently by search engines because they're kind of just categorized and classified rather than ranked in the same way as text maybe. And obviously, adding a few text type things will help for that classification process. And, think of it in this way. You want your site to become, the next Candy Crush in your niche. People love it so much. They just want to get back there. They want to engage with the community. You may want to use quizzes, and there's loads of like quiz add-ons that you can get. You may want to add Q&As. Just updating your meta descriptions and your page descriptions, and that product description text and just rewording what a manufacturer said in a different way, but really meaning the same, is not going to add massive value. You might get a little bit of a sales spin, but it's not going to want people to come to your site over and over. That's really just saying the same thing, but in a different way. You probably don't even meet any additional query clusters, to be fair. But if you add like Q&As, you have reviews, all that kind of thing, interactive content, will serve you well. Tip 6, I'm going to have to get through these quickly now. Think concept, connections, and disambiguation internally, including relatedness. Relatedness, obviously, is not relations. Relatedness is really about, what words sit together, what lives together, context vectors, context windows, if you like, concepts. What would you expect to see on a page about a jaguar? You would probably expect to see, if it was a cat, fur, tail, spots. If it was about Jaguar the car, you would probably expect to see something like tyres, road, hills. You might see hills with Jaguar as well. But anyway, that's the point. So think this when you're classifying your content and when you're clustering it all together in e-commerce in particular, and when you're internally linking to the related things. Be careful. Make sure actually that you're adding value to the pages you're linking to, because through these relationships, because it takes some of the difficulty in understanding what this page is about out of things. For search engines, particularly as we get, if you like, into sometimes a lesser text situation where people don't have a huge amount of time to read your war and peace on your e-commerce page. Build a lexicon. Look at all the topics and connectedness around the things that you sell, and look at organizing that within your site, if you like. Build a library. We're back to library science. This is all this is really. You're building a library science of e-commerce around the concepts and products that you sell. And consider looking at is related to schemas. So many really exciting schemas out there. This is on product or service. So actually you can start to again strengthen up those relationships using structured data. And consider some of these other ways in which search engines are kind of starting to work with the whole mapping these concepts. We know that there's Word2Vec that's there behind TensorFlow and so forth, but also I was reading about Concept2Vec, which is almost like clusters of words as this concept starts to come together as well now. So have a dig into these things, read more around them, and they're not always necessarily going to be implemented, but they're always interesting, that's for sure. Tip 7, be consistently consistent in content, fingerprint, canonicalisation, and pagination. So this is the thing, be consistent. If you have like a dynamic website and things change all the time, it's not easy for search engines to understand. And a lot of e-commerce sites are changing constantly. Every time you add a product, you change the category page because all the products move. So, you need to try and be consistent. If the only difference between your shoes, size this and style that, is the colour, you're not differentiating enough. So that may be where you could do things like canonicalisation, use internal linking, maybe include the colours as feature drop down in one single page. And think about these features and whether actually they alone actually differentiate things well enough and cluster together. And that pagination as well. There's a huge amount still in e-commerce of confusion around pagination. See a lot of people canonicalizing the first page in a series of canonicalizing the first page in a paginated series of rel equals next and so forth, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to page 1. But that's incorrect, because what's happening is they are not duplicate content. Every single product in all of those listings, it's like this. Look at that book there. Do you think every page is the same? No, it's not. They're just pages of a book, if you like. Page 1, 2, 3, that's the whole point of it. So self-canonicalize. Page 1 canonicalizes to page 1, page 2 canonicalizes to page 2, and so forth. Unless you have a page that has view all, you may want to consider that if you don't have thousands of products in the category or subcategory. Alternatively, you may, because you don't want to necessarily have that as an option if it's going to overload the users' load times and so forth. But, and also one other thing I see quite a lot of as well, people put rel equals next or rel equals prev in the actual links on the bottom of the series when it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. Although the next or on the prev, that's not where they go in the header. It's the notion of a relationship. It's not to be confused with something like rel equals no follow. So it goes in the head, rel equals next, rel equals prev, blah, 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 and so forth, yeah. So that's a really big area. Canonicalisation, it's simply this, I choose you. I'm choosing you to be the best representation of this content and stuff that is very, very similar to it. Be careful on that though, because actually it does need to be quite similar, yeah? Or think query clusters, well, if I said cars, red cars, Ford, Escort, they're still going. Are they still going? I don't know. Hatchback, whatever. And you gave such a long tail description that actually two cars are kind of more or less the same. That is very similar. That is probably a canonicalisation argument. But actually be careful, because sometimes I think you can actually end up missing out on a lot. So think about it wisely, but it's basically about choosing the best representation of this, if you like, query cluster or content fingerprint, yeah, for me. So two similars, you have to get it right though, because actually if you have too many two similars, they end up competing with each other and diluting. Think, what are the queries that these match, yeah, and that's it, yeah. And look at this, you can anchor the canonical down as an option. So you don't necessarily have to automatically go with canonical tags, because they are just hints and they can take quite a long time, and they're easy to just keep messing them up, because actually one rule such as internal links will override the softer hint, which may be canonicalisation, or adding the wrong thing to an XML sitemap will override a canonicalisation. Also, if you canonicalise to a page which then redirects, that kind of overrides it. So actually, the longer you get these wrong, I think the harder it becomes. Because so actually what you need to do is just think about using internal links as an alternative and just grounding it. I'm saying this anchor and not in the anchor text sense. I'm talking about pin it to the floor, pin it to the ocean bottom. You're pinning. There's no disambiguation. There's no ambiguous option here. This is the one I want you to pick, Google. This is one I want you to pick, search engines. And then it's similar to is potentially another one as well that you could use to disambiguate. Again, schema, that's a good one. Tip 8, consider carefully the tasks and subtasks of the e-commerce shopper. As I said, get personal. You need to literally know your customer and the segments and the target audience and the different types of customer and the stages they are in the user journey off by heart. You need to do interviews, you need to get the post-it notes out, write every single task and subtask that they could possibly want to do in their relationship with you, and then use navigation, use content, use internal linking, help them find what they need, yeah? Don't bury something miles down. Find a navigable way in which they can help them find it, yeah? And you can really only do this via research, yeah? And obviously things like people also ask is really useful for that, because you start to build out these task paths and subtasks. And tip 9, everybody's saying this at the minute, we know that Google is coming in with a ranking boost, but you need to get fast, yeah? And we know that people abandon on mobile. Not every connection all over the world is great. Not everybody's got the benefit of super speedy broadband that you and I might have. And some countries are just literally like mobile is their main way to access the internet, but they're on a poor connection. So actually, we need to speed things up super, super quick. And people will just abandon, and it's not a great experience. And so think about like this framework. There's loads of others, and I'm gonna zoom quickly through some of these speed things, because this is not really a talk about speed, but it's critical. Think Rail, which is like a web performance framework. Response, animation, idle, load. So when you're chatting with your developers, think about things like time to first byte, time to first interactive, time to first meaningful paint. How quickly are things actually loading up? Are you blocking the design from actually loading? Are people sat there waiting like with a spinner? Do you not even have a spinner? Have you not got anything going on? I think it was, who was it the other day? I think it's actually Lighthouse has this amazingly like entertaining facts that the audience gets to sit and watch whilst a lighthouse audit is going and the light is flashing. So there's things you can do to actually keep the attention, and things like with animation and so forth. Whilst things are being built, you can have things that are added during idle times, but there's quite an act to it. There's a load of great stuff on Google Developers around this, actually. It's kind of keeping that engagement, but being fast, and maybe, you're kind of in the background, Wizard of Oz, doing things in the browser and keeping things piping along, and the user doesn't necessarily realize that it's all happening. So that's kind of the ultimate, and obviously then the load. Optimize for speed, use tools, you really want to be getting everything green as much as you possibly can. There's loads of tools out there. One thing to bear in mind is when you see Cloudflare and CDNs are obviously great for delivering things faster, but they're not necessarily going to increase your page speed scores. There's a whole lot of stuff that Cloudflare shared with us about the reasons behind that. So you just need to look at speeding things up with different tools and doing things like do your best to don't presume that serving images, for instance, over a CDN is going to increase your page speed. Ideally, you need to chop them down and upload them first, small, compressed as much as you can. Let me check time. Going to be quick now. So watch out for other things as well, because even though Google Developers tells us that things like page speed module is out there, there are conflicts. There are conflicts with Ajax because it tries to load a full page, and Ajax is obviously not necessarily doing that. I know that Ajax has kind of been a bit deprecated now, but there are some conflicts that you should watch out for when you're implementing some of these things. If you're not necessarily massively technical, speak to your developers and so forth. Yeah, documentation out there, and maybe go even to the GitHub groups for things like mod page speed module, because actually they're really helpful. Implement and test gzip compression, zip up everything, make things small. Vardy has a great tool actually for testing whether gzip compression is actually working. I was looking actually on, I think, Page Speed Insights the other day. Seems to be some conflict between, again, tools. One tool was showing, yes, things are zipped. Another tool was saying, no, it's not zipped. You need to look at lots and lots of different tools and get across if you like, a critical view of everything. And then realize that gzip compression increases time to first byte. If you're obsessing on time to first byte, actually doesn't really make any difference. Gzip compression actually zips things up, but then actually what happens is it has to be unzipped during time to first byte. So actually Cloudflare did a great post on that as well. Look at there, and that's for them talking about that. But is it really all that? Because actually it's interactive is the most important thing. Ultimately, you should try and reduce your server response time to under 200 milliseconds according to Google Developers. This is going to change, obviously, because people will expect us faster. If you're not working on page speed, you're going to get left behind, And as I said, that was John Mueller, actually. And I asked him about the best wait time. And John was saying that actually look for when people are able to interact. Interactiveness is the key, yeah. Look at things like application logic, everything as a whole. The interactivity is so important. On e-commerce in particular, periodically re-optimize your database as well. Queries get clogged up and all sorts of things. So ask your developers to just re-optimize the database, yeah? Make sure you back it up first. Okay, and then obviously all these changes, you can do all sorts of things. I did some speed changes on a site that was really sluggish, and just a few things, working through, reducing requests and so forth, took that speed right up really quickly. So a lot of them are not even that technical either, like images, minifying things, clumping things together and zipping things up. It's worth learning about. And things like JavaScript, defer it. I'm not saying become a JavaScript genius or a JavaScript ninja or whatever they call themselves these days, but have a look at it, learn the basics, understand that it's interacting with and maybe blocking up the browser and so forth. So maybe defer it until a little bit further down the page. So actually, again, Wizard of Oz, something's happening out of view. And again, a little bit more changes. And again, same thing. That was actually the same page as I tested two screens ago, different scores. So different tools, different scores, GT metrics, page speed insights, web page test, Lighthouse. Look at them all, Pingdom, blah, blah, etc. And look at things like this: image optimization, base64 encoding, turning things into data, images into data. Use it on things that are very small, such as logos and so forth. I really love Varvy's stuff on this. Look at his site. Again, same thing, getting faster. That was the same site. No CDN in place there. Still improvements available. Lots and lots of things you can do just to tweak. And then type 10, pretty obvious, be mobile first, not just in a mobile first indexing sense, but be mobile first in a mindset, be mobile first in understanding that actually some countries just are using mobile above, well, more than desktop, yeah. By the way, we know that desktop actually is not in decline, but it's just moving slowly, more slowly than mobile first. But actually, you have to think about mobile first in several ways. It's about a way of designing websites. It's about a way of indexing sites. It's a way of, a way of life for some people who don't have access to fancy computers or even a laptop, but can get, a cheap phone with a SIM-only card, etc. You have to think like them. Think about progressively developing sites that doesn't rely on like 3 screens and whatever. Be mobile first, foremost, and forever, because it ain't going to change. And try and be adaptive. Adapt the content to the user's needs, but be careful on that one as well, because if you're too adaptive, when Google comes crawling, the page is going to change too much. So keep it so that you have a good amount of, keep context, yeah, and be careful of that with geolocation. I think I'm there now, actually. Multi-device, as I say, it's very important. People are on their phone even whilst they have got a laptop, a desktop, an iPad, a games console, a TV, because sometimes they can't be bothered getting up to go and Google who that actor is on TV that they're trying to recognize, yeah. Or they would rather just say to Google, hey Google, okay Google, play such a tune, or who's this, or my son asked it the other day to spell something for him because he's got some dyslexia. So actually, people are multi-devicing, and mobile is not just about phones. So I think that's me done. Apologies for the delay. Keep in touch. I'm on Twitter quite a lot. You'll have to excuse the fact that I do tweet pictures of Pomeranians, probably as much as tweets about digital marketing. But if you're prepared to live with that, please keep in touch with me. I'm on Twitter at Donianda. My small agency stroke consultancy is Move It Marketing. We share stuff as well too there. And I'll put these slides on SlideShare. And that's me done. So thank you for listening. I hope you're still there.
Yes, we still have time for questions. There are actually 2 questions.
Okay.
The first one says, what kind of pages should be prioritized more and less? I want to be sure that I won't exclude any strategic pages.
Well, you've just answered your own question. The thing is, the strategic pages are often the ones that meet the user's needs more fully than the less important pages, yeah. So actually, think about what matters most to the audience. If you're running a website and it's got a commercial focus, you have to really think, well, what does the audience want to do? What do they want to do? What do I need to tell them to help them to do that? And then write them all down, map them all, and don't always think just from like an SEO perspective. Think like, well, what do these users want? Because then obviously we can, we can focus on what's most important. Obviously things like keyword volume still matters, because you can guarantee if more people are searching for it, then actually it's more important to your users and it should be more important to you. Having said that, sometimes there can be a lot of things that are searched for that actually don't necessarily fit with your product or service offering. And they could be within your market, but you actually might not be able to do a great job of providing that. So actually, think about what you can provide. Don't just get traffic for the sake of it. Think about the tasks and the roles that people have within your target audience. So if they're going to buy a car, they probably want to know, well, petrol consumption. They want to know about the environmental factors involved with diesel or petrol. They might want to know finance, all the options. They might want to know the difference between leasing and buying a car. They might want to know the different types of payment plans, balloon payment, and so forth. Yeah, so all those different things matter to the user. So those are kind of tasks. They're not going to buy that car until they've checked those tasks off the list. So actually think about producing content. Maybe put that into like a help section. Think Help Hub Hero framework. That's another good framework for content as well, and navigation. So you might have the things actually that are not that important. You can even have like a more or like a hub page link on the navigation. So think hub is like a topic. It's like a crossroads. It's a crossroads for your users to find the next place to go to when it kind of fits in with the whole information foraging thing. People are looking for information. Some prefer to search. So, I should have add site search. That's a really, really big thing. Some people want to search, particularly on a phone, because they can't be bothered entering text. Well, they can in text, but they can't be bothered like going through all the navigational like links and so forth, or waiting for things to load in that way. So, I know that JP Sherman does an amazing job of focusing on internal search. I know Stephen Kenwright is also really interested in that field as well. So these are all people that are worth listening to in these areas. So site search, you have to make your own choices, but it has to be audience driven rather than just what we want as SEOs.
Okay, so the next question is related to that question, but instead with the crawl budget optimization topic.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the thing is, I spent a lot of time this past few years, like concentrating a lot on crawl budget optimization. I'll kind of say again that there's no such thing in that. It's a term that us SEOs have made up. Actually, it's made up of two things. One, it's based on host load capacity. The second one is it's based on the importance or change frequency of the pages that are there. So actually, on an e-commerce site, if you have a huge amount of really, really thin and rubbishy content, yeah, so say you're just adding products just for the sake of it, you don't add anything useful and meaningful and that adds utility, value for the user, you're likely to not have a great deal of budget allocated to you. Because you just dumped into these internet or to search a huge amount of pointless, meaningless pages that maybe are pretty much the same as any other site that's selling the same products as you. The thing is this, you need to look to improve those pages above all else. There's no point saying, hey, we're going to optimize our budget. It's not how it works. You're not going to get more unless you start to work on making the site better. That's the biggest thing I've seen as well. I mean, obviously we have faceted navigation that can cause like parameter issues as well. So obviously look at that. Make sure that you check things like logs to see if search engines are managing to pull in loops of URLs that are facets, if you like, or page views of different content being swapped around. But once you've got it nailed, tie it down to the three types of sitemaps I mentioned: the XML, the front-facing, and the visualization. You need a solid, this is us, this is our key pages and subcategories, and other things do come and go, but make sure that's got to be like the skeleton of your site. If you do that and you make your content better and you improve your user experience and the engagement, yeah, you will find that over time you've trained search engines and hopefully humans as well to realize this is a consistent website. The consistency is there. Everything is like where it should be, and it's always there. So our bathroom cabinets page is always that URL. It's like when we go knocking on the door, we know that that's where it's going to be. Or when we have like white bathroom cabinets, that's where it's going to be. Or if we have like, if we sell dresses long dresses is there. Long dresses size 10. It's just about anchoring everything, and you'll find actually over time then that you'll just get more and more crawl anyway. Yeah, you cannot get more. You cannot make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Yeah, and I spent a lot of time looking at that over the years. You're not just going to get Google to come to you if your site isn't getting better. That's what I've seen anyway.
Okay. So the last question says, why would you need to canonicalize paginated pages at all? Why can't you close them for indexing instead?
You can, yeah, that's an option. That's an option. So what you can, I mean, Google's guidelines are out there, and they do say about canonicalize to self-canonicalization, pagination. I would say this. If you're going to block them to search engines, what harm does it do to canonicalize them to themselves anyway, just in case, for some reason, the search engines got in there, yeah? So that is actually a strategy that a lot of people do take. You could say, right, well, actually, we're not going to use pagination as a way of search engines getting through these paths. What we're going to do is we're going to use other places, other internal links, XML sitemaps. We're going to use related categories, related products, and so forth. And you can. I would say that sometimes things go wrong. It's good to have like a secondary, just a secondary clue. It is only a clue, but I would have it there in case. I wouldn't just have nothing there if I can help it. Yeah. So yeah, you can do that, but I would just back myself up a little bit.
Okay. So that's all the questions we have for now.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
We were finished now with the presentation. Remember that this will be recorded on the YouTube channel. It will be uploaded to the website as well.
Okay.
And thank you, Dan, for sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, and I'll have a great weekend. Okay, bye.